I'm meteorologist Blake Hansen.
I'm meteorologist Samantha Jacques.
I'm meteorologist Michael Behrens.
And I'm Chief Meteorologist George Lesson.
What should have just been a white Christmas ended up being white chaos.
This blizzard was unique because of the timing, the time of year, and how long it lasted.
Definitely a high impact storm, one that just really left a solid mark on the region.
The Christmas blizzard was a forecasting challenge while also communicating to the public in a very calm but educated manner. So this all started easily about a week and a half prior.
We had snowfall in forecast for Christmas Eve into Christmas Day.
So as we're getting wrapped up with the first heavy round of winter weather, we're starting to see this next system.
And it was going to be something big.
And at first it was really exciting. We were like, yes, there's going to be a white Christmas. It looks like it's going to be snowfall. It doesn't look to be that messy stuff.
And as of late, the last several years, that has not been a guarantee by any means. Started noticing a very common trend between all the model data.
Spitting out insane numbers with this snowstorm.
Well, this is going to be an over-the-top event.
It was looking like we were going to see widespread foot-plus snowfall in some places that could easily go over 2 feet.
Whether or not it was going to be a snowstorm, a lake effect snowstorm.
There was something brewing for sure.
Oh crap. This is gonna be a long week.
I don't think, maybe they make me nervous.
You know, big blizzard this far in advance. Will people trust me?
It actually made me excited in a sense because I'm a meteorologist and I thrive for impact weather.
That's what meteorologists do.
But then I had to take it back and think of our friends and family here in West Michigan, that this is not great news.
People are here at the Woodland Mall getting some last-minute gift shopping done, and they're also even making some holiday memories.
We have a couple last-minute gift cards to grab.
We've all heard of those shopping procrastinators, people who wait until the day before Christmas to buy presents. But it may not be safe to do so this weekend as strong storms and snow are headed our way.
I know there's a big storm coming, so trying to get out here and get my money back before I'm trapped in the house.
All of the storms coming that they're talking about, we wanted to get a couple things out of the way before that.
Also, we came early last week, so we could beat the snowstorm.
With all of the snow and the strong winds that we are expecting over the next few days, that is a perfect mix for flights to be canceled.
And Travier Airlines are beginning to offer waivers ahead of the storm.
With 26 inches falling in about 4 days. So our folks are already kind of, prepped for whatever we have in store, Mother Nature has in store for us this weekend.
Because the number of travelers is expected to reach record-breaking numbers this week, with today being the busiest travel day. Now, quite a few flights made it into and out of Grand Rapids this morning, but more than a dozen have either been delayed or canceled.
And good evening, I'm Juliette Dragus. Tomorrow night at this time, West Michigan will be under the first blizzard warning since 2019 and the first in Grand Rapids in more than a decade.
Blizzard of 2022, it was a 4-day event.
You're always worried about your forecast when it comes to winter storms because even some very consistently forecast winter storms can surprise you when they get here. Probably the biggest surprise that came with this one was the system snow that came through. We're talking the Thursday night into early Friday.
That's when things start to get messy out there. We see that system approach as we head through the day on Thursday, increasing its coverage as we head into Thursday night.
Monday through Thursday from 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. It was really long shifts of communicating with everybody, their viewers at home via Facebook, writing web articles, and then I had to get on a flight to Florida. I know, you're like, you had to get on a flight to Florida. I get it, but when you love weather the way that I love weather.
I'm still looking at all the model data. I'm still communicating with my team members.
It was like pulling teeth to get me to get onto that flight because
watching it from afar, wishing I was in the office every single moment because
I wanted to see the storm through.
These kind of events don't happen very often.
I wanted to be with you. I wanted to experience it with you. I didn't want to be with the palm trees. Any other day of the year, I'd want to be with the palm trees and the sunshine, but I wanted to see the storm through. I went up to my news director and our general manager, and I said, just tell me not to get on that flight, and I won't. they told me that I should get on the flight and that, you know, the storm was already coming to fruition and that we had the 3 other Mets here ready to, you know, man the fort, and I knew they could cover it, and they did a phenomenal job rounding out the storm.
As people are worried about whether they're going to be able to get where they need to go and do the traditions that they hold so dear. And obviously traveling and being with family and friends is a huge part of that. A viewer directly reached out to me on social media and they said, hey, I'm looking at the forecast, I'm looking at what's going on here. I got a flight that's supposed to leave Friday.
Because they were trying to get in.
And they were like, should we move this flight?
And trying to leave during the blizzard.
And I said, absolutely. And that, it's hard to have that kind of confidence that far out, but this was the storm we were looking at. I said, absolutely move that flight. If you wait until the end of the week, there is a big chance you are not going to get where you need to go. And she took that advice. They moved their flight to Wednesday. And then they messaged me actually from the beach, beautiful picture of some palm trees saying, hey, we listened to your forecast, we moved our flight, we made it there. Our original flight got canceled, and basically without you, we wouldn't have made it on our vacation.
Blizzard warnings go into effect at 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. Those will stay in place all the way through Saturday evening. Winter storm warnings also start at 4 p.m. for the counties further away from the lake shore.
We're talking about a storm system that brought in multiple impacts, not just the snow.
Lake effect snow and very high winds as we headed into Friday and into Saturday.
Through the weekend, as we expect very high impacts both from icy conditions from the snowfall, reduced visibility from the wind, and Kirk, all that means is that we're going to have some very high travel impacts, especially factoring
the combination of all of those 3 impacts also led to sub-impacts, such as blowing and drifting snow.
Really heavy snow totals reported.
Completely not being able to see your hand in front of your face.
Whiteout visibility, roads that were impassable.
Snow plows, tow trucks, you name it. They were getting stuck in snowdrifts.
Those were the things that we were expecting to see, and that did come to fruition from this storm.
Because it was just before Christmas, there were a lot of people traveling.
We are concerned. This has every bit of the making to be a significant event.
Kent County Emergency Management has been in touch with its local partners, including the Road Commission, first responders, and hospitals, making sure they have staff on hand, although this storm's timing is pretty bad.
It's going to be more challenging because some of them, may have traveled outside of the area before the snow even gets here. So their pool to pull from, so to speak, may be lessened by that effect as well.
Emergency Coordinator Matt Grosier says there has been staffing problems in the public safety sector, which has affected response times for ambulances. And this issue could become exacerbated by deteriorating road conditions.
And if you haven't gotten any of your last-minute errands done by, I would say, Thursday afternoon, it's too late. Don't plan on going out. Roads may become impassable at times into Friday.
Meteorologists are in the job of not only being accurate with the forecast, but communicating their knowledge to keep people safe.
That we had to make sure our station was ready to cover this, operating on holiday staff.
It was a 1 meteorologist per shift.
Looking at this working from home during that time period, I'm watching the storm, being on vacation, but still monitoring it. This might be one of those events where...
And you start to think about the public. Is Sally going to be able to make it to Grandma's? Are we going to be able to get across the state? Are you going to make your flight out of the Chicago airport? And then all of those pieces started to come together, and we realized
I might actually have to come in.
We were going to have to buckle into this coverage.
We need all the team members working on this at the same time.
Snow as possible, but for the most part, it seems like people are staying inside, staying warm.
At some point, it transitions from the weather department over to a newsroom story.
Jay, back to you.
Roads today, when do you think the main streets will be done compared to those side streets out there?
But the majors is our priority. We hope to keep those clear throughout the storm.
unless things really change.
All right, be safe out there. Dan, thank you.
Whether you're staying inside or you're going to try to venture out, this is what you're going to face.
Now we are here on the outskirts of Hamilton to answer your question. That is southeast of Holland.
We have visibility that is at times less than a quarter mile.
Now it's actually M40 that we are along right now.
And that just becomes a very treacherous situation, and one that people can get stranded out in for a long time.
Car crashes that happened here and that it closed a part of the road off. Now, even though firefighters themselves said that there were no injuries, just getting a look of what happened.
Impacts were going to be short-lived in terms of cleaning up the snowfall, but impacts were going to be serious if you were on the roads in those conditions.
Now, if you do find yourself out here, it is absolutely vital that you end up covering yourself with layers, because it is brutal. I took off one glove just so I could touch this phone, and it is miserable.
Lake effect would not stop.
Road conditions, especially with so much ice, there's a thick layer of ice on the roads, so secondary roads, even main roads, still are pretty ice covered, and with the salt just not being effective.
And you factor that with the winds, again, those 40, 50 plus winds. I saw photos from at least one viewer where the snow was drifted up over the side of their car. It was drifted up to the roof line of the pickup. And I mean, that's like 6 feet in the air sometimes, depending on the truck. And this thing was almost buried.
If you don't have to travel, we still want people to stay home, even though it might not look like there's a lot of snow because of the blowing. Those drifts are pretty deep, and that blowing is just increasing concerns with visibility and with this layer of ice that we just can't seem to get off the road.
I remember looking at most of the tower cameras out there, and most of these tower cameras were pretty empty.
Near Muskegon. While we do have some improvement over the last
Showed
hour.
a good thing that people had been listening to the forecast and that they were ready and staying at home from what we were seeing.
So you're going to have some families who are going to stay home.
They literally risk their lives driving around here and bringing us food and making sure that we're okay when we can't go out or we don't want to go out.
And then you're going to have the families that don't.
Even though a winter storm is upon us, it really seems like business as usual for some. Earlier, we were out in the town and saw the local grocery store parking lot filled up quite a bit.
When you lead up to these high impact events, people are going to do what they need to do, no matter how much we advise them.
Before Christmas, and also before conditions worsen this evening. We, as in us news folks, aren't the only ones having to work today. I ran into a woman who works at the Dollar General in Middleville.
I went 40 miles an hour on the highway just to be safe. I've been putting air in my tires because all my tires went down low this morning. So the roads don't seem too bad. It's just visibility is probably worse.
At the end of the day, it's important that
people realized they needed to stay off the roads.
You can't force people to do what you say they should do. We can't force you to stay inside.
They really, really care whether or not they're going to be able to make their Christmas Eve plans, their Christmas Day plans, and whether or not they're going to be stuck at home.
We have to make our viewers pay attention.
Now, for people who do make the decision to travel, that is a very risky one.
Ottawa County Sheriff's Department advised no one to be traveling on the roadways late Friday into Saturday.
Those that either couldn't stay at home or had to travel out, or those that did get into trouble, people were still working diligently to get to them.
Just because emergency services are a little bit more difficult to get to certain individuals depending on where you're at, and also it can just make it really difficult during that waiting period, because being stranded in these elements, assuming you don't have access to heat, you really need to make sure you are bundled up wherever you are going.
One of the things that stuck with me most, one of the sheriff's departments issued a statement, which was basically, hey, if you go out, you're taking your life in your own hands. We can't guarantee we're going to get to you. Emergency services won't be able to get to you.
I will say, while we've been here, we've seen most of the residents here within and kind of riding out the storm, staying within their homes unless they're snow plowing or ending up using their own shovels to clear off their driveways. But I will say that wind chill just makes it unbearable to do much of anything.
So don't do it. That's just something that is pretty wild to hear.
Because of the amount of blowing and drifting snow that occurred, they couldn't even keep up with their snow removal efforts.
Now, we've seen a lot of those plows out throughout the morning since we've been here, but just because of the high winds and these bitter cold temperatures causing refreezing on the roads, it's been very hard to keep those roads clear after they've been plowed.
We were seeing slide-offs everywhere and accidents and all these different things.
But if you're going to head out and about, you need to be prepared that this is what you could run into.
Slowed down in front of her. That's when a Meyer semi-truck passed by and slid while trying to stop, causing an accident involving at least one other vehicle.
All these different things occurring. We had, emergencies in certain counties.
The governor issuing a state of emergency for this blizzard.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer activated the State Emergency Operations Center this afternoon, which means the state is coordinating with local communities to provide quicker responses to emergencies.
We're relying heavily right now on our Michigan Department of Transportation partners, as well as our Michigan State Police personnel that are on the road.
There's 48 hours left of this storm.
Currently handling various matters. Traffic crashes are very prevalent. So we're looking to support their efforts to help the local communities.
It's not done.
Blizzard of 2022 had the most snow out of the 6 blizzards that I've encountered here in West Michigan. Even though it had more snow than all of the other blizzards, including the blizzard of 78, it was the type of snow that made the difference. On the beginning of the storm, the snowfall was just kind of wet, but it transitioned very quickly over the next 3 days to a very light, very fluffy snow, full of air. That made all the difference.
I think that so many people will say, oh, I've seen worse storms. And there probably were broader, worse storms. In fact, there were. We know that.
So out of the 6 blizzards that have come through with warnings since 1967, I would rank this as 4th. Number 3, there was actually a blizzard in December of 2009, almost 16 inches of snow. But again, that was a very light, fluffy snow. So that's why it only placed 3. And the winds weren't quite as strong, but it affected twice as many counties as the blizzard of December this year. Number 2 on my list may not actually have been a blizzard. Couldn't find out if there were blizzard warnings, and even if they were issued, the winds with that storm did not meet the criteria. But we had 18 inches of snow in a 2-day period. That was the great blizzard of 67 that affected not only Chicago, but all of West Michigan, all 13 plus counties, all of Lower Michigan. That is probably still one of the bigger snowstorms in 1967, along with 1978. Now, the last blizzard that we had that actually meant anything was the Groundhog Day blizzard. That was in 2011. A lot of folks remember that, but that only lasted about 18 hours. And we did get 17 inches of snow with almost 50-mile-an-hour winds. And again, the characteristic of that snow was, kind of wet, not quite as wet as the blizzard of 78, but it was certainly, in my opinion, almost as bad, if not worse, than this last blizzard in December. With the blizzard of 78 being number 1, mainly because of the type of snow that fell. It was all very wet, heavy, cement-type snow. The winds weren't quite as strong as this blizzard, but those winds were enough to pile up those 6-7 foot drifts. They weren't light, fluffy drifts. They were cement barriers. It's hard to move cement around. So communities were shut down for days. So that is the reason why the blizzard of 78 is still number 1 in my book.
This was something, and this was an event that only happens every couple years.
This blizzard was probably number 1 because of the timing. If this had happened in January or February, not surrounding one of the major holidays of the year, it probably would have come and gone and said, ooh, that was kind of bad.
You always remember going through a blizzard. The last one that I went through was in high school, and that was in 2011.
Well, the length of this event was one of the factors that made it difficult for people to get around.
And that's why this was such a broad, debilitating storm. And then it were those other elements of the wind and the cold temperatures.
One of the things in our favor was how light the snow was. Even though it piled up, it was a very light snow. I think we dug ourselves out a little quicker, and Mother Nature probably helped as well. melting the snow.
In any storm, in any event in West Michigan, one thing we always see is the community coming together. And I think there are a lot of people in West Michigan that got out of the storm and then they came back and had to shovel the right back into their homes.
Some of the stories that we showcased of people helping out others.
The South Haven Emergency Services, they were fighting drifts bigger than their truck at times. And they were still working to get to people. And I think this is really just kind of the West Michigan way.
There was an animal shelter that dogs were stuck in their cages outside because so much snow had piled into that shelter location.
People helped out, communities helped each other, just like they always do.
So we put that post out and people started coming up, and then those tears turned into tears of joy. I mean, they absolutely rocked it. It was amazing. We cannot thank everybody enough.
But the feedback we received from many people that it was the right decision based on what we were communicating to them. It makes us show why we do this as a living, why we are meteorologists.
Those are the kind of actions that we see come out of storms like this, is this positive community rising. It's the season of giving, and we saw that all across West Michigan, despite the storm.
We come together and we make sure to arise from anything that does challenge us.
We made it through.
Thanks for joining us today on 13 Plus.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you for watching.